Hi, I'm Mario Evon, and you're listening to Talk Truth, a weekly edutainment podcast discussing the things that most people are afraid to, but from a Jamaican perspective. From relationships, sex and sexuality, to the ins and outs of entrepreneurship, in this space we speak about almost anything with the intention to inspire, educate, entertain, and create a fair and balanced space where your truth shall become your power and set you free. Welcome to episode number 53 of Talk Truth, and it's me, your boy Mario Evon. You don't know it already. Happy to be here on another Sunday, grateful and ever blessed. To kick off today's episode, we are going to read a review because it's been a minute, and this one comes from Great Britain, and it's from Apoyza. That's Apoyza. Apoyza gave us a 5-star review titled "Wow," and she said, I'm assuming you're female, and if you're not, I apologize. I discovered this podcast during the corona crisis and lockdown. I've listened to 3 episodes so far, and I'm hungry for more. So going through the past episodes, genuine, fearless, entertaining, and truthful. Keep it up. Apoyza, thank you for the 5-star review. We thank you for your time. We love it. You don't know it already. Keep listening, and much love, blessings, and guidance. Thanks again. Oh gosh, guys, welcome to my next episode of Talk Truth. And guess what? I have a new guest, as always, when it's not me alone. And I like to ask my guests to introduce themselves, because when you have these fascinating people that do many things, literally, the bio is just too much for me to do. They can sum it up better than I can. Welcome today, Shelli Green, and we're going to be talking about fearlessness. Shelli, welcome.
So, thank you. That's the first thing.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for having me. I was asked that same question during a meeting this week, and I really didn't have an answer.
You mean how to introduce
yes.
yourself?
And I just felt so weird because what do I talk about? Do I talk about what my career has been? Because I don't see that as something that defines who I am.
I like it. And that's
so
why I like to ask
hard.
you. Because for people who think in a certain way, it's almost like, is it who I am or what I do?
Exactly.
So, and those are 2 very different questions. But introduce yourself could be done.
Completely. So for me, if I'm introducing myself, I'm an ambivert.
All right. Yeah.
Right? I'm an empath.
Yes.
ENTJ comes to mind. And if you're into other dimensions of analyzing oneself, then I'm not familiar. I'm not sure if you're familiar with, and I'm messing this up right now, but it's...
No, it's perfect. And we know ENTJ is Myers-Briggs, guys. Go and do yours. I may actually be ENTJ as well.
So even though I was INTJ once, so I'm
wait. Once too. Maybe it shifts a little bit.
Which is why now,
as you mature, or whatever.
I go to just saying like I'm ambivert,
right.
So I'm in between.
So
like I can present
as an extrovert sometimes, and sometimes you're an introvert.
Completely an introvert.
And your intro could be something like, I'm Shelli Green, Jamaican goddess of the earth.
Exactly, facts. But no,
that's not it.
No, that's not it at all. But I struggle with introducing myself.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I struggle with introducing myself because I really don't know. I think about what other people want to hear also.
Right. Well, so, you've given us a little picture of what you, the human, is like. Tell me a little bit about, before we launch into the fearlessness, tell me a little bit about what you do, if you don't mind.
So right now, I am the executive director for diversity, equity, and inclusion with a government contracting company. I say government, I'm in Jamaica, yes, but it's a US-based company, a US company, and they're based out of Colorado. So they have a global footprint, and they're in several spaces with different 3-letter agencies and, Army, Navy, that type of thing.
Right.
Prior to that role, I was a program manager. I was in the quality and safety space. So I've matured, so to speak, with the company over an 11-year period.
Right. Which is excellent. I mean, are there a lot of people that look like you at the company? No.
So I mean,
your whole job is to ensure that actually. So that's interesting. When you started, were there people that look like you?
So there were always people at my level that looked like me.
Yeah.
As you progress in most of these organizations, the people that look like you start changing. So I was actually the first person in my company to be an executive director. So I'm the first Black female executive. There's a male VP who's Black, but I'm the first female. So that was kind of a shocker too, for it to be 2020. And here I am, you know, and then I'm also in a diversity space. So that was a little bit odd.
Right.
I'm no longer the only one. So just this month, I had someone else join as an executive director, and a Black female as well. So that was really good.
You know what's funny? I want to say congratulations, and I mean that genuinely, but at the same time, I'm like, we should be way past having to say congratulations, you know, but that's where we're going, right? It should just be like, this is what it is, you know?
Yeah.
But given the space we're in, congrats.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I you know, so being from Ocho Rios, Jamaica, I always kind of look at it like I'm just a simple little, you know, village girl.
Jamaican country girl, right?
Country girl. I love my country.
Right.
And for me to, you know, just kind of step back and acknowledge, like, you know, that's pretty cool that you've been able to attain this success in other people's eyes. And in my eyes, I am so fortunate to be in a space where I can affect change in so many people's lives. And the change I'm referencing is making sure that we are inclusive and that their concerns are heard and that they're seen. And that is extremely fulfilling.
Well, I like where you led me, because you mentioned how people see successes in their eyes. And this episode today is about fearlessness. Do you have a definition for fear in your own words? And then I can back it up with an internet definition. But in your mind, what would you say is fear?
Full disclosure, I thought before coming to find a dictionary definition for you,
because you would.
I knew. Yeah, because that's my personality.
And I kind of love it. But because preparation is always key to life.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I had my notebook and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to make sure that I have set points that I talk about fearlessness. And then I thought, you know what? The only thing I can say is just how I've approached life. And fearlessness, in my definition, is stepping into discomfort and being okay with the results.
Wow.
And I know that sounds so odd, but for me, that's kind of what's worked. I have been uncomfortable. There's been situations where it just didn't feel right. But what felt right was my belief that it's going to be okay. I don't have to worry.
Yo, you see, because I love Oprah so much, I would have called that an aha moment. But because this is Talk Truth, I'm going to call that like a truth bomb, which I've used before. Wow, stepping into discomfort and being okay with it.
Yeah.
I really like that. I really like that, because most times fear, the things we fear, we're uncomfortable with. So it's like stepping into that, and then whatever the outcome, you just have to be able to deal with it. I'm going to look at one online which says, let us quote, it's from Oxford Languages, and it says, an unpleasant emotion caused by the threat of danger, pain, or harm. So I guess whatever the thing that you're fearful of, those emotions will come by. So I am a grown-ass man and I don't like croaking lizard, but I don't say I'm afraid of them because I can kill them. So there are levels of fear for the croaker story. So if I see one on a wall, I'll spray it drop with its fat self, and then I'll smack it to death. To me, I don't consider that fear because I'm able to kind of even get close to it. Mm-hmm. Then I have friends who, if they see one, they'll scream and run.
Right.
And I think that's a different level of fear. But I do have some element of fear for them because I don't want them in my space. But am I afraid that they'll cause me danger, pain, or harm? I don't know. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
How fear can sometimes not be justifiable. Because that little lizard couldn't do anything to me.
Yeah. You're uncomfortable with something.
It makes me uncomfortable. I don't like how it moves. It moves slow. And I think of it on my skin and maybe what it would feel like if it's stuck on me. Maybe these are the kind of thoughts going through your mind. And that makes you uncomfortable.
Yeah. Very
interesting. All right. So out the gate, do you see yourself as a fearless person? But while you think about that, at the point when you started to embrace this word, is it that people were telling you that you were fearless, or you actually think of yourself as fearless?
So I don't see myself as being fearless. And I actually had a conversation with my namesake, Shelli.
Yeah.
And we were conversing about, hey, I'm going to have a conversation about fearlessness.
Right.
And I literally had to call, I have a circle of 7. Yeah. Yeah. And these are the people that keep me centered.
Sounds like a Netflix show, Circle of 7. 2023.
Right, exactly. So, and it's also family. So I call my cousin and I'm like, Anna, like, if I'm going to talk about this, like, what would you say that I talk about? And she was like, oh my gosh, Shelli, you know, you've taken on so many things that I would never think to do or I just admired. And when she started relaying to me what she saw from what I did, and for me, it was just being normal. It was, okay, it's uncomfortable, but I'm going to do it.
Right.
Because I truly believe that my path is being directed and, you know, by God or whoever you feel. For me, it's my path is directed by God. So I don't have to have that feeling of fear.
Right. Faith will trump fear.
It trumps it completely, but I have faith in knowing it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
That my path is already predestined. So if I'm here, I'm meant to be here.
It doesn't eliminate the fact that you do not have, that you may have feelings of fear sometimes, right?
I will have feelings of discomfort. And that's how I phrase it. Right. I will always have that feeling of discomfort.
We won't even use anxiety or fear. We'll use discomfort.
Right. It's just not comfortable.
Right.
But it doesn't prevent me from making that move. And to your question, it's what people have shared with me that makes me think of it. Otherwise, I wouldn't have thought of it.
And I can relate to that. All right, what I'm going to do now, though, is clearly your journey has helped people see you as fearless. So let's take it back to young Shelli. Mm-hmm. You were born in Jamaica, of course. Tell me about Shelli, the young girl, what your life was like, how your parents raised you, and what that foundation was like for you.
So I was fortunate to go into the private school system. Mm-hmm. So that created an environment where you're in smaller class settings. Yeah. For me, it was everybody was almost a relative because I'm from Ocho Rios.
Right. So everybody know everybody.
Everybody know everybody.
Pretty much.
At the time when I grew up.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I had an opportunity just to completely be myself and to come into my own and experience life fully. So I was a very expressive person, and I've always been very expressive. If you're around me and you know me, you know that I'm going to say how I feel. Right. I'm going to feel whatever emotion. So if I miss you, I'm going to tell you that I miss you. If I love you, I'm going to tell you I love you.
You're going to take us from right through it, from the start to the end. We're going to get all of you.
You're going to get all of it.
Right.
And I never turned that off. So in the early years, I just lived and I just experienced life fully. Yeah. Went to high school and that was challenged.
All of this is in Jamaica, right?
This is all in Jamaica. I did do high school here, and at 15 is when I moved overseas.
Right.
So that was even a whole different experience because I'm leaving my comfort zone. I knew because many of my peers were leaving at the time, and
but that wasn't by choice, though.
It was not by choice, but it was also a decision, a conscious decision that was made by my parents because of opportunities for college and so on. And the good thing is I had enough people from my peer group who also moved. So we started that whole experience together. Right. But it wasn't all at the same time.
Right.
We kind of found each other as we started assimilating into American culture. And that was, it was difficult.
Right.
It was difficult because it was that culture shock. You know, when you leave your home country and you know everybody, and then you go to an environment where, for me, I had to overcome some of the isms with different groups that were not familiar to me.
Right. As a whole set of different isms than our isms.
Yeah. And understanding that, you know, change is going to come. But I almost feel like our culture prepares us for challenges. Like I did not have a feeling as though, you know, okay, let me step back. What I always am reminded of, because my mom is very similar. Well, I'm very similar to
your
my
mom. Mm-hmm.
And it's always, well, you're Jamaican or you're my daughter. What else? You know, and that's something that comes from our culture. We're like, what'd you expect?
Right. We don't feel. We can't falter, right?
We're
strong. Yeah. The
exactly.
word I like to, we're resilient.
We're
resilient people.
Very resilient.
And I always think about natural disasters and Caribbean resilience. Haiti, and people are like, the Haitians should move out before. They're always worried about us wanting to leave when things go bad, and the Haitians are like, I'm home.
Right.
this place is crumbled up,
right?
But this is home, and we're going to rebuild.
And that's an interesting dynamic all by itself because of just the history of resilience for the Haitian people. Yeah. But to your point about what my friends and my cousin observed, it's, I got married young too. Yeah. So I'm also the one that's going to step out and everybody's like, what are you doing?
How old is
young?
And
at 18,
we're going to come back to that, but you got married at 18.
I did.
We're not going there yet. All right. Well, what I want to do, I'm coming back to you moving. I want to take it back to childhood quickly. And what I want to know, were there things that you were doing, activities? Were your parents pushing you to be someone who's trying new things? So how much of it is you? How much of it is learned because of the space that you're in with the adults that are around you and cousins and people?
So I think a lot of it is learned from my mother because of her fearlessness, right?
She's a fearless person.
So she's always taking risks.
Yeah.
And she took risks in business. She took risk in every aspect of her life.
Not the risk
Mom's
averse.
always, Mom's the, adrenaline junkie too.
Yeah.
So we were exposed to everything. So I was exposed to every activity.
You were her adrenaline junkie baby. Adrenaline baby.
But not even like that. I was just, I feel like it was just, baby, it's where I grew up, but it was part of the culture.
Yeah.
You had to do everything. If I'm going to be a part of the play, like if they ask you to be the lead in the play, you just had to do it. There was no...
Yeah, there's no option.
Yeah,
there's no option.
My singing voice wasn't that great at that point, but I had to sing the lead. Right?
The end.
Right.
I'm the lead. Let's go.
Yeah. And, so I got, the fastest girl on sports day. Yeah, that's just... Things were just... it was almost... It's innate. So it was just a part of... It was just a part of the culture of how I was nurtured.
I bring it up because fear is, I believe, a learned behavior. Children are born fearless because they have no concept of judgment, being different. They come into the world to play and eat and sleep.
Yeah.
And then they remain fearless and curious. But then the influence of society is when fear develops.
Yeah.
So I think the difficulty for most adults is maintaining fearlessness into adulthood while those constructs start to come. Mm-hmm. That's why I asked. So, but what I like though is that you didn't have a restricted childhood and you had a fearless mom. So that was generally your space to exist in, and the culture and the Jamaican culture feeding into that as well.
Right.
All right, so that carries forward. You move to the US, which is a huge jump as a teenager, especially because right there is when you form a lot of friendships. Mm-hmm. Going through, you go through puberty already, but you're still growing.
Yeah.
Breasts are grow, body are grow, everything are change.
So I was a late bloomer too.
So your breasts were just growing.
Right. Well, and once they grew, that's all you saw.
There we go, guys.
Yeah. So it was horrible. That part of it, yeah. But then, I'm in America. Now I'm, acclimating to this culture that even though you're exposed to it in Jamaica, it's not the same.
Were you afraid to go?
I was very afraid to go because I didn't want to be in their school system because my perception of that and what was taught to me. Right. But not only that, but there was a level of violence associated with that for the major cities that we would normally be in. Right. So I was fearful of going to New York. Right. And I'm using fear now because that's exactly what I felt. I didn't fully understand that it was discomfort for me. Right. Now as an adult, I get it. But then it was, oh no, I will not go and live in New York. Mom, we need to move to Florida.
And what we see in the movies and the subways and ratchet knives.
And
probably
that's legit.
Then.
That's
legit,
legitimate.
Like, what's going to happen in school?
Exactly. So I'm like, no, that's not not my ministry. No, I'm not going to do that. No, it was scary. Yeah. And then you get there and then it's nothing like that. Yeah. Or there are elements like that, but then you realize, oh, yeah, I could do this. Yeah. And friendship dynamics was one of those things that I was still building as a teenager here. So going there, it was really interesting to kind of see how I met my best friend, who's a sister, who's everything at this point. But I met her during that whole experience of acclimating to that culture. Yeah. And we were able to kind of journey along together and really help each other through different moments of discomfort and push along. And I'm going to get to that a little bit more when I kind of transition from, okay, so now I get married and then I realize, oh, this marriage is, I'm too young. This is not what I want, because we now we're at an impasse. He wants something that I don't. And I realized my path was going towards being an attorney. Like, I wanted to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
And he was doing things that were contrary to that. That would not, I'm still part of a social group that looks at certain things in a specific way. So if I'm going to do this, then you should at least be equally yoked, as we would term it, right?
But yeah,
and it was contrary to that.
How bold of you though to get married at 18? What was happening in your mind at the time? Because you would have just moved at 15 in a brand new space, and I'm guessing that he's American.
Yes.
Oh yeah. So 18. What led up to that?
I wanted to feel free. So same thing with my mom. She's very much a free spirit.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to be free of my parents, free of the things that were expected of me at that age. I had to do this and I had to be under someone else's rules, and I just didn't want it.
But I also figured that at the time you were in love.
Oh, I was absolutely in love.
Yeah, I don't think you'd get married if you're not in love.
I was so in love.
So it felt right.
It felt amazingly right. I was so in love with him.
Yeah.
So in love with him that even his family to this day, I have adopted his family, and we're still really close, and they're like my cousins. His cousins are still very close to me today.
Right.
And I have no relationship with him at all.
Right.
But I married into a family that I absolutely loved, and I was so in love. But
what's funny? You didn't step into the marriage in discomfort. I think the only uncomfortable things about the marriage were the societal expectations.
Absolutely.
That one, you're too young.
Yeah.
And I'm sure your Jamaican family was thinking, what the hell are you doing?
Yeah. So his family was also Jamaican, though he was born in the U.S.
All right, cool.
But they had moved many, many years before.
Right.
So it was still some sense of, commonness and similarity, but it was still... Put it this way. At one point, his mom sat me down and she said, Shelli, this is not the relationship for you.
What? Yeah.
And it was so hard to hear someone that I love tell me that.
About their own son?
Their own son.
Yeah, which is big.
And that was love.
Which is big, yeah.
That
love for you
so
and love for him. Love for both of you.
Love for both of us.
Both of you.
And I love her absolutely.
She told you that leading to the end of the relationship, or
when
somewhere
she saw that things were not aligning the way they should.
She said it.
And she saw that my headspace was in a total different place than where her own son was. She advised me to leave that relationship.
That's mature, eh?
Yeah, it was. So hearing it was really difficult.
Yeah, but
I've always been one to process things.
Yeah.
And if I have respect for you, I'm going to hear what you have to say and process it and then come up with my own conclusion. And what that did was it helped to plant the seed for, wait, am I settling in a situation that's not right for me? And that's when I stepped out again into discomfort and decided, you know what, I was staying home. I was in college, and now I'm not 18 anymore. I'm getting closer to 20. I'm going to be 21, and I'm like, I haven't finished college. I need to do that, and I need to go away. I'm not going to stay in South Florida. I'm going to go away to North Florida, and I'm going to go away to school. And I looked to my best friend who I'd mentioned before, and, at that point, we had just bought homes. So we're young homeowners. Yeah. We have responsibilities. Yeah. And I come to her and I'm like,
I want to move.
We can't do it. We can't stay in these jobs. We're going to be stuck getting XYZ pay for umpteen years. This isn't going to work. Let's leave. Let's go get our college experience.
So now you're trying to bring people into your fearless life.
And she's grateful for it to this day.
Yeah.
She is grateful for it to this day because we stepped out.
So it was in good judgment, right?
It was in great judgment.
But here's the thing, Shelli, why this conversation is so interesting is because I don't think the majority of humans living are capable of making these kinds of steps, which is why they perceive you as so unique and fearless. But this is living for you. This is life for you. But for most people, being stuck is not uncommon. Being unable to just make it past that next barrier is not uncommon. Starting a YouTube channel, doing a podcast.
Yeah.
They get stuck so much processing, putting themselves out there.
Yeah.
Or what might happen or what the outcome might be.
Exactly.
And that holds them back and they stay stuck right in the circle or the cycle,
Yeah. And that place that you get stuck in, it literally is a circle.
Yeah.
Like you're literally like a hamster running. Like you're just like seriously.
Nothing's happening in there, but
nothing.
But cardio.
And I've always felt right, losing weight, sweating. But I'm like, I've always felt uncomfortable with that because even with, you know, starting out thinking I'm going to do law because coming from Jamaica and having my godparents like, I'm, you know, if I'm paying for your college, you're going to do law. What?
Yeah, no.
But I don't know if that's what I want to do.
No,
you
exactly,
know?
exactly.
And then I realized I go to college and then I'm like, no, I actually want to do journalism. I want to do public relations. And then when I do public relations, I'm like, no, I want to do broadcast journalism. And then I took a whole nother path once I even got to that space where I'm like, oh, this is a different experience for me. I want to try something else. And I still had responsibilities, but I guess my parents have always created a space that regardless of how challenging things are going to be, you're going to be okay.
Yeah.
You can always come home.
You know, I'm going to ask this question earlier. I would have probably asked it later, but I'm going to ask it now. And I think it's better for you to answer because we know that you've had career success for sure.
Right.
You've had relationship experiences, which would be deemed as successful in society, meaning getting married.
Right.
Which people love, you know, in terms of ticking off the boxes.
Right.
And you're still doing well and you're happy. What of the people who think that you're just unsettled, you know, that you're just flitting from thing to thing to thing under the guise of fearlessness, but really you just don't know what you want.
So I actually don't have anyone who's ever shared that opinion. So I really don't know if people think that because if you know me, you know I'm going to do me. You know I'm going to live life to the fullest. So the people who I have around me,
they wouldn't even come to you with that energy, right?
Because they don't even process things the same way.
But they also trust that when you choose to do something, that it's coming from a place of...
She's thought about it.
Right,
Shelli's got this.
All right, no, and I'm glad I posed that devil's advocate question because for the listeners who want to interpret fearlessness as just moving with every knee jerk.
No.
That's not what I process it as, and I don't believe that's what you process it as. I would move more with a gut, but it's still a gut with some informed decision. Like you take time to process the changes, right? None of these things have happened. Maybe a few have happened quickly, but overall, these are things you've thought through. Each decision.
So I plan.
Talk to me about that part.
I don't move without a plan in place.
Yes,
so
tell me about that.
Things align for me in a way because I have also planned.
Yeah.
So while I'm planning and even the move, did the research. I went away. My cousin, actually my ex-husband's cousin, was already in Tallahassee and she was in school. And I went with her and I visited and I'm like, okay, I checked it out.
Right. This is how it feels. This is what it looks like.
Right. I feel comfortable here.
Yeah.
Then I go back and then I propose the idea to the core group. And then I say, okay,
to the 7,
are we going to do
circle
this?
of 7. There's going to be a theme song after this. I swear.
I'm like, should we do this? Yeah. I seek their input.
Yeah.
And they're then, really, you're thinking about this? And I'm like, yeah. They don't discourage. So my circle never discourages because they know that I'm prepared with something that I'm bringing.
They just ask you questions.
Right.
To make sure that you've thought it through. You know?
Absolutely.
Right.
And if I haven't, then I'm with a very vocal group. So they will then
We're going to explore
what that feels like.
Let's explore this dark area that you haven't gone to, Shelli. We're going to shine a light right here. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And if it's something where I don't want to hear it, then I will then say,
I'm not ready.
No, not that I'm ready. I really don't want to hear what you're going to say.
So that will happen at another meeting. when next time you listen to that, right? Next meeting for that. But that's good. It actually does give you more time to process.
Yeah.
No, this is an important part of the conversation because perceived fearlessness is not just running out in the streets wildly, that there is planning and thought before decisions are made.
Right.
Just that you are prepared to deal with the outcome. All right, wonderful.
Right. Mm-hmm. And there's an element even to, I believe most of us, I'm fortunate to have a very good support system.
That's it, yeah.
And if it's not an extension of the people who I've met in my life, it's an extension of the people that my parents know.
Yeah.
So I have an aunt. Yeah. You know how we have that auntie that really is not blood auntie, but that's auntie.
Yeah.
So now I graduate from college, right? And I'm, okay, what's going to be the first job? I want to move to New York. And my aunt comes to visit. And my aunt's like, well, you know what? I have a basement apartment. Shelli, you know what? You're welcome to it. And I'm like, I have an in. I can live somewhere when I get there. But I moved there without a job.
Right.
So I'm out of college now, and I get there and I have no job. So thankfully, I knew how to network. So I networked and was able to find my first job in New York was a PR job. And I'm doing it, and I was like, this is not where I want to be.
This is not it, yeah.
I want to go, into the broadcast journalism space. And I remembered, I built a relationship with people from college, right? So I reached out to them, and then I get another opportunity to interview at CBS News.
Wow.
And that was really interesting because it was a page program, very entry level. So they had a similar thing in California, and you had to obviously be in California in order to do it because it's a page and you're going to be moving people from different sets to sets and different, there it was TV shows. In New York, it was either for, at the time in the CBS building, they had the 106 in Park.
Yeah.
So they had the BET shows in the Viacom building. So you're either going to escort guests for that,
right,
or you're going to escort them to the evening news, 60 Minutes, or something like that. So I'm like, I'll take an entry job.
Low-key exciting in a weird way.
Very exciting, but very intimidating at the same time.
Right.
Because you get into this building and then it's, security, and then you got to take your photo and all this stuff. So I get there, I go for the interview, and I do the interview, and at the end, this guy's like, you just keep calling us. You got to call us. I would recommend you call us every day to find out if the slot opens.
What kind of life that? Yeah.
I'm like, is this Devil Wears Prada? Like, what is going on? Like, they really have gatekeepers in these spaces, and you're like, I have to call you every day.
Maybe it's even a test to see if you have the
exactly. Yeah. And then you're like, okay, I'll do it. Yeah. No problem. So the very next day I'm ring, ready to call and do that. But before that happened, the same day that I interviewed, I remembered, and I don't know why it didn't come to me just before. So I had a professor in college, and she was the vice president for NBC News, and she had come back to give back to her alma mater. And she comes back, and we build a relationship just off of how we interacted with each other, right? And I remembered, she is now working here at CBS. I want to call her before I leave the building.
Yeah.
So the guy's ready to walk me out because we've done an interview now, and he's like, okay, I'm done with
that. Yeah.
Make sure you call us.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do that. But as I'm walking out, I said to him, can I use the restroom? And he was like, oh yeah, just go ahead. And he points me in the direction, and he leaves me alone. So I get into the restroom and I call her.
Right.
And I'm like, calling, no answer. I'm like, darn, I'm in the building. I want to at least see her, you know? Because you never know. Maybe I'll get to meet someone. Maybe I could have a job opportunity.
Right. Maybe she's best friends with this guy.
Exactly. Something.
She'd be like, Bob, hire her. No.
Exactly. I don't know what level she's at this point.
Right? Yeah.
So I'm calling. I stayed in that restroom for an hour.
This guy thinking they're stealing fixtures or something. Like, she must have some bad diarrhea. Something not going in there.
I stayed in there. So here's the thing. I forgot that they had their morning meeting for the news. So before you can start on any day for a newscast, you have to have the morning meeting.
She was probably in her morning meeting.
She was in the morning meeting. So I'm glad I stayed.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
The hour in the bathroom.
In the hour in the bathroom.
Yeah.
And thankfully it was fairly clean. So she responded, and then she was like, oh, Shelli, come on up. So I'm like, yes, I'm still in the building. I get up there, and she introduces, then I realized she's the boss. So she introduces me, everybody on the news desk. She's like, oh, this is one of my former students, blah, blah, blah. She introduces me. And then, I'm like, wow, I got to meet all these people. Maybe there's going to be an opportunity. I don't know. At this point, I don't know.
Yeah.
So I get home. Next day I wake up. I call the guy back, and I'm like, okay, hey, hi, this is Shelli. I'm just calling to find out if any slots open, for the page program. And he was like, you know what? Thank you for calling, but no, we don't have anything yet. I really love your enthusiasm, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, okay, great. 10 minutes later, she calls me. And she was like, Shelli, my managing editor, he called, and he said he has a slot open as a news desk assistant. Are you interested?
Wow.
And I'm like, what? She was like, can you come into the city?
But she knew you were looking for a job, right?
She knew I'm fresh out of college. She knew an entry-level position would have been fantastic.
Yeah.
But obviously, this is someone that reports to her and is like, oh, someone quit today. Someone had quit that day.
Yeah.
And the very next day, they call me in. I get to the city. I sit with him. He goes over like what the job would entail. It's entry level, so there's not much that you're going to really do for an interview besides someone giving you an opportunity.
And it's in that field.
Right. And I started that very day.
Look at God. Look at life. Look at God.
Yeah. And it was very intimidating.
Yeah.
But all the pieces, like I said, were already in place. Relationships had been built. There was a certain level of comfort. You know, even though I was uncomfortable being in a building, it's still, I had met somebody who's there. I had a relationship with someone, and things kind of just aligned. And within 3 months, I was able to move on to another position. And I stayed with them for almost 5 years. Mm-hmm. And I held 4 or 5 different positions while I was
in the
there.
5 years, which is a good movement for you know. It's funny how all of these topics, you know, when we put fearlessness on this episode, but it ties right back down to the secret and magnetism and visualization and universal flow and just kind of doing what you feel like doing if it feels right, and
absolutely.
And the universe will conspire and just provide.
Exactly.
It will just open up. Look at that. You're looking for a job in one place, same building, then the next job open up, and then you're working.
And it just was so great to walk by him in the hallway and be like, I work
CBS.
here. Right?
So all of a sudden your ID's in your hand, your ID's by your face.
Right.
Am I holding my ID by my face?
I have a full-time job. Yeah. Not part-time. Yeah, it was great.
All right, wonderful. So Jamaican girl migrates at 15, gets married at 18, out of marriage, moved to New York, new job, homeowner. Now you clearly stay there for 5 years.
Right.
You keep moving, and this is generally Shelli. You keep moving.
Yeah, I do.
Run me through some of the next moves that people would probably view as fearless moves.
Okay. So this is the big one.
Mm-hmm.
So we were still in the States kind of going through our perspective shift towards people from the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something where many people had their own levels of discomfort, you know, kind of what we're seeing now with the negative things that are happening to people who are of Asian descent in the U.S. because of COVID and so on, right?
Yes.
So then because of terrorism and how things were painted, anything that had to do with the Middle East was seen as a negative.
Yeah.
I had covered a news story, and it was a bombing that was in Lebanon. And it's so funny because years later I go to Beirut and I'm like, head down south, and I was super close to and saw places that I'd seen and captured footage on for one of the shows that I'd produced. So it was really interesting, and I'm jumping around here.
To be there in real life and not feel the same way as how the sensationalism felt.
And things always kind of add on. Like before going to New York, I'd not been exposed to Middle Eastern culture much outside of having family members who were of Middle Eastern descent. But it was still not something very comfortable or experience. I didn't have much experience in it.
Right.
So in that culture. So I met someone in New York, fellow news person, and they were from Egypt. Their family was from Egypt. And I got immersed into the culture that way. So it started like little building blocks. Right. So
you were being prepared.
I was being prepared without knowing.
Yeah.
And at the same time, while I was in the newsroom, you know, I'm young, I'm in the newsroom and I want to progress. But then we had the Writers Guild strike, and that was affecting us. And then I was trying to understand how unions worked in this space. And we saw that they were doing a huge convergence with. Now I'm actually doing video for, this was, you know, new at the time when we were putting our news content onto the website.
Right.
So you could go to the website and view the content.
But
this was after I was on the show and I just helped produce, you know, a segment for a show. Now I'm coming back and I'm loading it up. And then there was this whole conversation. Well, that's 2 separate jobs and you shouldn't do this and blah, blah, blah. And there was a lot of conversation happening around what does the future look like for news? And it's interesting to see the space we're in now.
Right.
But I realized this was not going to be a place that I wanted to be. And some of it, too, was because I was never comfortable in entertainment news. I was more comfortable in hard news stories and really making sure that I stuck to the factual reporting and not the sensationalized idea of what people wanted to hear. And I saw that there are different people who control what we're actually seeing.
And then, well, with all news, that's how it is. But with entertainment news, even worse. Like everybody is Olivia Poped, meaning, they push out what they want to push out, which I get.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's, not your space, right?
Not my space. And I'm very uncomfortable in a setting where it does not feel authentic.
Right.
So for me, things it just didn't feel right. So I started kind of exploring in my mind what would be next, right? And just so happened there was a guy that I'd met in college, and I started to date him, and he was like, you know what, I have a friend, he's doing, government contracting, and he's overseas, and, he's making XYZ. And I'm like, what?
What he making? What he doing?
Right. Like, wait.
Tell me more.
And he's not stressed out because I don't have holidays anymore.
Right.
What holiday? A news story could break and I have to literally be at
there,
work,
right.
or I could be stuck there. Like, it was just, no, you can make what? For what? What? And all I need to do is move. So
it's a t-shirt. What? For what? What?
Right. Exactly. So I'm like, okay, I got to do this. I've got to find out what this is about.
Right.
And I started asking people who were in the newsroom with me who had covered the war. And they're like, well, Shelli, you sure you want to do this? And I'm like, yes, I think I want to go over, to the Middle East. And this would be something that is different. So I want to leave this career because I never thought that I was going to have one career, just so you know. So
you always knew you would have probably tried different things.
Yes. And I just think also it's a generational thing too. Yeah. I don't think we are our parents who were like, yes, I'm going to be this one thing and that's it for life. No, there's so many dimensions to who you are as a person, and you want to explore that. And for me, you can relate.
Yes. So every day me I try to come out of this career, one of them. Right. I talk about it all the time. Yeah. I don't hate it, but I just don't see myself doing it for the rest of my life. Like, I just don't.
You don't. When you see where there are other ways that if money's important to you, you can make money.
Yeah.
Or your time is valuable to you and you want to preserve that, you figure out a way to kind of make it work. For me at that time, and I just sold my home, I was like, well, money is important to me right now. Right. Forget all that other stuff. Money is important to me now, and I want to make a certain amount of money. So I'm willing to go to the Middle East to do it.
Yeah, I think I'm at that space right now where I think money might be important to me right now. Yeah, like that's where my headspace is.
Right. That's okay.
I want that stability, Yeah. I don't like the feeling of not having that stability. So I'm like, I need to settle this. And you don't have forever, That's the thing, you don't have forever. So you do have to make some wise decisions. And this is where people get stuck sometimes. So anyway, that's a whole other episode.
Yeah. But you really have to step into that discomfort. So I was really like, okay, I ran it by everybody and they're like, what are you doing? It just so happened the guy that I was dating, he left. So this was like a December, and he leaves to go, he takes a job, right? And he was also in television working at, Bloomberg and all this good stuff. And he moves and I'm still in the city and I'm kind of left with, okay, now I'm, what am I going to do? Like, I need to make a decision. So in that February, I was like, okay, I'm applying for these jobs and nothing's happening. So for my vacation, I booked a flight.
And you went over there.
I went over there.
Are you worried about sharing age? No, never are. Good. Let's keep moving.
Okay, so I...
I'm okay without having it. I was just wondering about timeline wise,
Oh, so I'm in my 20s.
Gotcha. I can work with that. Yeah.
And you're still like, oh my gosh, this could work. Oh my gosh, he's a great guy. Yeah. So I go over there on my vacation and we set up for me to get interviews with different people. And I knew I interviewed well. Yeah. So I wasn't worried about that part of it.
So you go over there for the vacation and I interview for job over there?
So it really wasn't a vacation. Job
interview.
So, right. It was job interviews, but I told my job I'm going on a vacation. So I took a week vacation and went to Kuwait.
The old job. Going over there.
So I'm still at CBS.
Yeah, but you're doing
and now I'm making the move.
In
so remember, you got to plan the thing.
Yeah, plan the thing.
You're uncomfortable. Right. Yeah, but you got to plan it out.
Vacation interviews.
Right. So we're utilizing the space to go see the man that you care about at the time. And you're like, well, I'm going to interview as well. But when I get there, it's a culture shock. Yeah. So I was not used to hearing the morning prayer. Yeah. We still have that tense feeling towards, will I be safe in a Middle Eastern country? And this is 11, years ago. Yeah. So now, Yeah. So this is 11 years ago, and I'm very unsure of how I fit into this space. The women are covered. It's dusty. It's hot.
And you're black.
Well, that did not become a dynamic because that's a plus for me in the Middle East.
Okay, good.
So, yeah, I am golden. I am great.
Yeah.
So that was okay. But it was still where things weren't as modern as they are now. So, you see people are all like, oh, I'm going to Dubai, blah, blah, blah. 11 years ago, it was not like this.
Right.
So it was very different, and it was what it was going to become now, but it was still a very tense feeling. So I get there and I interview, and it just still felt so strange. Everything felt uncomfortable. Everything felt weird. The heat, the having to cover, not knowing the currency, not speaking the language. Then you didn't realize, as many people who did not speak English openly, but some did, and they, trying to communicate with a taxi driver.
Yeah.
And it was just, that week was very difficult for me because as an American in that space, because now I'm traveling as an American, it was very difficult to separate. To separate what they were telling you in the States and then what was reality.
Right. And the two are coming together now.
All at once.
All at once, right?
So then I'm like, I don't know, but I'm still going to try to do this. Money was a motivating factor.
Yeah.
So
this time we're like, good job. Yeah, I'm going for it.
Discomfort. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. There's
Money's
nothing
the
more
motivating
uncomfortable
factor.
than moving to a country where you don't speak the language and the culture is totally different from what you know, and it's huge. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I get back and a week later, they told me I had the job. So I gave my 2 weeks notice, and then I started telling everyone, hey guys, I'm moving to the Middle East. And they're like, Shelli, you're crazy.
You're crazy, right?
And I'm like, no, I'm not really crazy. I just want to make money. I don't want to,
I'm not staying there forever.
Right. Right. Then. So I had to tell the family, and that was, what? Why?
Exactly. Why? Wait,
right.
Why there?
You can't get that job. You don't have to go there.
Yeah.
Like, it was just.
Yeah, they're wondering what's up.
Yeah, everybody was kind of like, Shelli, what? And then my cousins who are Middle Eastern descent were like, oh my gosh, this is so cool. You get to go live there.
Right.
And then
everybody's perspective was different.
Everybody's perspective was different. But the joy that I have is everyone knows they can share their perspective.
Yeah.
They know that I will still make my own
I'm going to do me anyway. Well, that's why me and you will be friendly now. Because you understand me. I'm one of the people who will just do what me and do.
I'm going to do it. Exactly. So,
yeah.
thank you for sharing your opinion.
I appreciate you.
This is what we're about to do.
I'm moving to the Middle East.
Exactly. Yeah. So I, again, now get on this flight. But just before that happens, the one person I know in the Middle East decides that he wants to break up with me.
Whoa. So now you don't even have a support person.
I don't have any support person.
Yeah, you want no one on the job.
Nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
But they're English speakers at the job.
English speakers at the job.
Right. Which is...
The work, I'm mostly around Americans.
It's fine.
But my discomfort was coming from, and genuine fear was from everyone else that I didn't know.
Day-to-day life, right? Day-to-day life.
And having to interact. And then once you get there, the other thing that becomes a thing that you have to adjust to is the way the driving happens, because nobody cares.
Right. If you think Jamaican bodies, that's worse.
It's worse.
Yeah.
So imagine coming on a dirt road. It's lonely, no street lights, and then the person who's coming the opposite way does not have their lights turned on.
Right? Them kind of things, right?
So their headlights are off, and you just see, phew, like, what?
What? I hear Lagos is an experience too. Never been, but
or someone's coming behind you. You don't see them. It's at night, and you're driving, and then all of a sudden they get behind you and they flash their lights. Yeah. And then from a woman perspective, and it's primarily happened to a lot of people who were blonde hair. For some reason, that was like a thing. Mm-hmm. But back then, men would follow you. So if I was driving a car by myself, I would get followed in the car. And that became something that was very frequent.
Yeah.
And then once you get comfortable and once you start to know the place, and then you're like, listen, don't follow me like you can get, and then they'll leave you alone. But you don't know if you can say anything.
What's the intention? The cultural thing?
It's twofold.
Yeah.
One is the curiosity of, who is this, but it's also how people meet people.
By following them in their cars.
And if you give me an eye contact, you have to be very careful.
Or what it may have, translated, right?
Translate to that person.
Right.
And then there are different nuances because there's no real open dating. Right. So someone's really either genuinely showing interest or they probably would want to do you harm. I don't know.
In any space where things are hidden, there's always like a underworld.
There is an underworld. So there's that element to it too. And then if you're new to that,
you don't even know what the hell is going on.
Yeah? You have
this
no
is like
clue.
coming to Jamaica. Like, I'm sure a lot of tourists love Jamaica. The people are nice. The food is good.
Right.
But if you don't live here, there are a lot of nuances that you're going to miss. That can keep you safe. Or that can, whatever they are.
Whatever they are. And that applies to every country.
Culture, every country, right?
Every country, every culture.
Every city, everything has a,
Because on the same token, and just to close that thought process for being in the Middle East, I absolutely loved being there at many different points.
Right.
So I could walk up to an ATM. It could be a long line of men. I'm the first one. They will definitely, they'll get out the way. They defer to you, Defer to you. During COVID last year, we had a lockdown. That was extreme lockdown because they locked the whole country down. So we would joke and say we could go out on the yard for an hour.
Yeah.
So we'd only get an hour.
Yeah,
that we could get out the house.
Yeah.
But when we made an appointment, we had to go to the supermarket. Once you got there, women and families were first. And you would see the long line of men. And that was okay. That was normalized. You are such a crucial part of the society as a woman that it's respected.
Yeah.
And there are, simple things. Women have special parking spaces, especially if you're a family. You have special parking spaces at different malls. It
almost seems bizarre.
Yes.
In a world that's fighting for equality for women, you have a space where women are kind of, in one sense, held on a pedestal.
Correct.
But in another sense, they have to stick to such very strict moral values, and in a way, I'm sure for some of them a lack of self-expression, which they may not mind or they may mind.
Right. So there's
like
nuances.
A paradox, right?
Yes, absolutely. There's so many nuanced things that you learn just being there. And because of those things, when I would tell people, oh, I live in Kuwait, or I'm, and they would only see me once a year or whatever, and I'm like, what? And I'd be like, listen, we can communicate like normal. And back then Skype was kind of coming on board, and that was a big thing. And, we would communicate by Skype, and still people were like, I don't know how to reach you. And I'm like, just use Skype.
Just use Skype. Yeah. It wasn't like a FaceTime, WhatsApp video kind of world then.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't as much. And once that started coming into play, and then I could start showing people more like, look, this is where it looks like, this is how, then it changed the perception. But most of my friends and people that I know would not have moved. They saw that as like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you did this.
This is a company you still work with, right?
I started with that company, not the very first job, but the second job that I have over there, and I've been with them since.
All right, that's wonderful. I have a few more hard-hitting questions for you. And
really?
I know, right? Hard news. In making that move, since you've been with that company, I mean, clearly people will recognize that this is not being done online. This is actually being done in Jamaica, this interview currently. We're going to get to that. Were you afraid of the things women worry about in your 20s, moving to the Middle East? I don't believe you had any kids at the time. Were you worried about whether you'd meet someone, whether you were going to have a family of 5? Like, were these things that prevented you from wanting to move, or you considered in your move? Like, what happens if I'm in the Middle East as a Black Jamaican woman, and is this what I'm looking for? Am I going to meet a partner? Like, what the hell?
Right.
And you pick up yourself and go over the same way? That's fearless.
So
what was that thought process like?
So there was always this thing with people that they're like, if you're a Black woman, the likelihood of you finding someone,
right. That's the perception,
and they don't have kids, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
I can count on my hand how many men I have dated that had children.
Right.
Very minimal.
Right.
And the people that I've actually dated and had a relationship with did not have children.
You did date over there, and it was okay?
Oh, absolutely. I did date there, and I've always just had that perspective, like...
With the Americans there, or even with the Middle Easterns?
Both. So I've just realized that when it comes to dating and relationships, I don't have to worry. I just don't have that. I don't have that feeling of, oh, it's not going to happen. And I brought up about the dynamic with being a Black woman and how, you're not going to. Right. Because, and this is not because Shelli's on like, oh, Shelli, blah, 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 you're this, but no, it's just not happened for me.
Yeah, no,
So
I think I mentioned the black thing because I think it's my ignorance about the culture as well.
Right.
So I'm assuming that once you're black in a space where everybody might look on you as different, that you'll be a novelty or like, you know, because I had friends who had gone to Greece and being black in Greece apparently is interesting because there are a lot of Africans there. And if you're not from Nigeria or Africa, people automatically assume that once you're black, you're from Africa. And there were certain cultural things about how those black people were perceived.
Right.
Which caused them to treat you differently. So, you know, I've heard different stories. Greece
No,
is
that's
not the
very
Middle East, but, you know,
that's
there are different
evident
prejudices that exist. So I was wondering what the prejudices may have been like for you, but it didn't sound like there were many.
So here's the thing about Kuwait.
Yeah.
Majority of the people that I was around that were Kuwaiti look like me.
Ah, got you.
So the Kuwaitis that I know, that I'm close to,
right, they look like you.
They look like me.
All right.
So,
all right.
but
so
they're Arabic.
You're teaching me. Yeah, they're Arabic.
So,
right. So
for me, I had a completely different experience.
Right,
I would go to the people that look like me, their weddings, and then I'd see more people that look like
you.
me.
Yeah.
And then I'd see a cross section, just kind of like here in Jamaica, where you see people of all different
right.
shades.
So it's just an appreciation of how the different people present in the culture, right? But again, stereotypes do cause you to have visuals of what you think it looks like.
And people
it's
think
important
that Middle
to break
Easterns,
down.
Middle Eastern people are fairer skin, and they're not.
No. Yeah.
You know, there are people who look like me I am Arabic.
Yeah.
And whether we want to go into the nuances of,
that's a whole nother episode too, right?
Yeah. But the people that I was around look like me.
We stay right there. So Shelli's fearless about dating too. I want to take you on. This is probably the last thing I want to take you on, which is you're still working, but right now you are currently based in Jamaica, and it's a pandemic.
Yeah,
and I think moving anywhere or temporarily or whatever during a pandemic traveling during a pandemic is scary. And I'm sure a lot of people view this move as fearless.
Yes.
This is where I'll give you all some history. I met Shelli in 2012 at Trinity Carnival. It was both of us were there for the very first carnival. It wasn't my first time in Trinidad, but first carnival. And we've kept in contact over the years.
Absolutely.
And now she's right in front of me. And she's fearless.
Social distancing.
Social distancing. She's fearless guy, could be an axe murderer. But I think over the years, she's realized I'm not. All right, Shelli, tell me this last move now. And it's a big move. So what's going on now with Jamaica? You're here again. How does it feel?
It feels amazing.
You're flowing again? You're following your universal flow?
So yes, I have done that. But I also set it up in the planning.
Right. Let's get back to the planning.
Right.
Back to the plan.
So I knew when I visited my dad 3 years ago, almost 4, he had a stroke. And I realized that, you know what? My dad's probably going to need me.
Yeah.
So I have to figure a way how I can get home. And that started a seed, planting that seed in my mind of how could I do that? What is that going to look like? Who knew we were going to have, COVID in 2020? Did not know that. But prior to that, I got recognized in my company as part of Top Talent. And we were given this initiative. It was 6 of us ended up being on this initiative to increase or to really set up our strategic plan for diversity, equity, and inclusion within a company. So I'm on this career, trajectory, and things are looking great, right? Well, part of that, I realized, okay, well, I'm in the Middle East. I'll have to work for a corporate office. But if I'm going to do that, do I have to come to Colorado? So we started a conversation around, well, can I work remotely?
This is pre-pandemic. Right, based on what you're doing. Yeah.
Slowly going into the pandemic, because this was December of the year prior that the opportunity presented itself. And our CEO was like, hey, would you be interested? And would you be interested in taking a 2-year sabbatical from what you're doing? Yeah. And that's how he termed it. So I was like, can I think about it? And then 2 months later, I thought about it. That was February.
2 months later, after the circle of 7 met.
Right, after the circle met. So that February, I proposed this in February is when everything kind of went, oh my gosh, what is happening?
Right.
And then George Floyd happened in the States. And that really accelerated stuff. So then the conversation got stronger and
Right.
like, okay, so what will that look like? And I am so fortunate I'm in a company that when they do recognize talent, you are afforded opportunities to really be your best self.
Yeah.
And I've never been shy about sharing, my love for my father and my parents all together. Mommy, love you too. But I really have a genuine concern and care for my father, and I wanted to be with him. So
yeah.
I saw that opportunity, and they afforded me that opportunity.
You can't pay for that
here.
time. You can't get that
I can't get it back.
Can't get it back.
And I want to be around my dad where I can be of value to him too, and just support him through what he's going through.
Yeah.
So that's what brought me home. But what also brought me home was the love for home.
Yeah.
I've always missed it. I've always been the person to encourage my friends, like, so when we go and move out, or ask my friends here. I'm using that term loosely too, because then I realized once you move away, like, they're not your friends no more sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Because things change, and people are
that
growing.
Are more acquaintances. Our friends who you touch base with every now and again.
Right. And then I was hearing the horror stories of the people who were here.
Right.
Discouraging me from coming. And then the horror stories from people who were only visiting and not living the experience.
And it's like you move into the Middle East. It's the same thing. It's kind of like perception versus reality. And then you have to come for yourself and see what's really happening here. And how is it functioning? And how will it affect me?
And how will it affect me? And even
is it
more
livable?
so,
Is it not livable?
This is my home.
Exactly.
This is me.
Yeah.
This is...
And
I lead with I'm Jamaican.
Yeah, nobody can take that away from you. So I must can come back to Jamaica and live, right?
Exactly. I lead with I am Jamaican.
Yeah, so how can I be fearful of my home? Yeah.
And to go back to your point and introduce you, I do lead with that, and I just thought about that. I lead, I'm Jamaican.
Yeah, yeah.
So how can I say I'm Jamaican, but I'm fearful of my people? I'm fearful of Jamaica. Yeah. I'm fearful of, going out into the backyard, and if there's a goat out there, scared to touch the goat.
Yeah,
or scared to experience Jamaica in its fullness.
I feel that way strongly.
And I see a lot of people, and they'll come back and they're like, oh, I'm going to go to Kingston. I'm going to live this, blah, blah. And, I did get the folks who are like, you're not going to want to be in St. Anne. You're going to get bored. But I am also a simple
person.
So based on your personality, I'm still a country girl.
Okay, right?
I'm okay with that.
And we have a highway
come to
now.
the excitement.
And we have a highway now. It's a beautiful one. And two, for anybody who's lived anywhere with a lot of driving, is not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. Yeah. And I've shared that with you. Like, coming to the city is like, what? I'll be there. No problem. It's
when we have to take a train from Canarsie for go to Manhattan, 55-minute one way, 145-minute drive on the highway is not a big deal.
It's not a big deal. It's really not. Yeah. And I am in such an appreciative space.
Yeah.
This just feels fresh and new, and it's vibrant, and now I get to some of my other friends would I live where you vacation.
You can drop that meme.
Right.
I live where you yeah.
But I don't even see that I am alive.
Yeah.
I'm alive.
And I think coming
so
here
full.
in a pandemic is interesting too, because I think what will happen if you end up staying long enough is that the world will go back to its normal self.
Yeah.
And you would have gotten to acclimatize again at a quiet time.
Yeah.
And then it will become loud again. But it will be interesting. It will almost be like a gradual welcome back, in a way.
Yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to it. I am just so alive right now. And I just said that word, and I'm using it again because everything just feels great.
And it feels right.
It feels right. It feels right.
My last question for you, Shelli, and I always like to do this at the end of the episode, is... to the people who hug up fear, the people who are stuck on the hamster wheel, who just get knee-jerk things and gut movements, and they just never listen, and they never ever act on it. What advice do you have for them?
I'm not in the business of giving advice to people.
I like that, right? This is not my job, but...
Right.
What's your opinion on that?
But seeing as you brought me into this... I'll tell you what one of my mentors said to me, and that was, live. Just do it. The worst that can happen is you die. We're all going to die.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a Steve Jobs quote like that, but I like the Shelli quote. the mentor quote through the mouth of Shelli. Just live, Because we got dead anyway.
You get dead.
And when you die,
that's the worst that can happen.
And when you die, guess what? It's over.
It's over. We're all gonna have an end.
Right. There's no opportunity to express yourself at that point. Anymore.
Nothing.
So do it while you can, right?
Yeah. And if you want to tell that person, hey, I love you, tell them.
Tell him, right?
Yes, live.
Shoot your shot. Shelli.
I will.
Shelli, thank you so much for being here, guys. Shelli drove in from Ochi for our social distance podcast recording. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I don't know if this is one of those episodes where you want people to find you, but if you do want anyone to find you, now is your time to drop anything. But I know that you're a girl that's quite on social media, so you don't need to be found there, right?
Yeah, so I am just acclimating to social media based on the previous job that I had. So I did not expose myself on the internet like that. So I'm really not in a space where people could find me.
Let's leave that there then. Shelli, thanks again.
You're welcome.
You just listened to episode number 53 of Talk Truth with me, your boy Mario Evon. And that was a wonderful interview with Shelli Green on fearlessness. And I hope you got a lot of gems from it. And that as you move through life, you will continue to remove that learned expression of fear and fully step into your truth and into your power and following your universal flow and rubbing up against your gut feelings and using your gut feelings to guide you into what your gut knows is right for you. Please like, follow, and subscribe. Share with your friends. We are on social media at TLKTRTH. That's Talk Truth without the vowels, all over the place. But our website is TALKTRUTHJA.com. That's talktruthja.com is our website. And our email is talktruthja@gmail.com. Please give us a review on Google Podcasts, anywhere actually. I meant Apple Podcasts, but drop a review wherever you can. Screenshot the picture from the cover art, or just write a quote from the episode and drop on Twitter, put it on Instagram, Facebook, tag us, show us some love. Until next time, this is Talk Truth, a place where your truth shall become your power and set you free. Blessed love.